All right, so now what happens when you've dealt with like a slump? Like, have you ever had weeks where you're just like, oh my gosh, I want to kill myself? This is not a happy moment.
Oh yeah, I mean, everyone has those moments and those times. Really, it's like so. One thing that I really do is I write down. So like some of my really good days, like I've done five in a day, four separate times. So on those days, I'll write down like, okay, exactly what I did,
Mm.
exactly how it made me feel. What was I trying to, chase after I've done that? Like what am I feeling now? Because then you feel like you can take on the world. So
Yeah.
you write that down, and
Like
when you
anchor in that emotion and story.
absolutely, and then so whenever it's like you go through that slump, you just pull that out, and you're like, this is what I've done, and this is what I was chasing, and I'm in the slump chasing. Let me just get one or something like that. It's like I just wrote right here that I'm chasing seven in a day, or whatever that was, and here you are, like whatever slump you're in. It's like, okay, well, you can do it, right? You just gotta change. Like you just gotta get that same exact mentality back because it could be family problems, it can be financial, it could be any type of problems that you have whatsoever. Friends. You could be feeling alone because sometimes in the sales world, sometimes you shouldn't because you should have a really good culture being surrounded by people. But even then, sometimes you still can feel, like man, I'm out there doing this by myself every day. It's like
It's lonely,
yeah.
especially like a little teeny company when there's like three reps and it's like,
Oh,
all right, Tom and John are also in slumps. Let's all slump together.
yep,
It's
yep,
like
yep.
it's tough. Um,
That's so true.
so this is interesting. I liked what you said, where you're like anchor in, because I believe whether people write it down,
Yep,
document it, or not, I think people actually anchor in more the slump more often than they even consciously recognize.
that's so true.
So think about like the story people tell themselves and say, I'm writing this new story of I suck, which is so bad because it's programming your neural pathways in your head
Yeah,
of like, hey, I'm always going to be this
yeah,
versus like, no, 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 no. This was a bad couple days.
yeah.
Remember me over here? And
Right.
like bring awareness to the consciousness of like, I am a great person.
That's so true.
Yeah, and I love how you're like, it's a visual memory. It's a visualization of like, this was me.
Yeah,
And say that identity I cement in and I choose not to let this new identity serve me, which is the slump.
that's so true.
I love that. No,
You know,
that's good.
that's yeah, it's really good because that's exactly what you have to do. You have to hold on to those good things and, like you said, and anchor it inside of you and really relive that. You know what I mean, and make it happen again. You know what I mean? That's what it is. I tell my guys sometimes like, if you're gonna get into a rut, let's just be more aware, like you said, of seeing when it's coming. Right? Let's say it's one day, it follows into 2 days. Now 3 days, and you're like, okay, okay, I see it. I see this rut coming.
Yeah.
Well, let's make adjustments right then. You know what I mean? Let's make it a pothole rather than a rut. Just a little bump in the road. That's all it is. And like, let's just literally or swerve away from it. If we're aware of how we live and aware of like patterns that we have had before, you know what I mean, as far as how we live, then you can literally change that. You can alter that course. You know what I mean?
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
You really can, and I try to tell my guys that all the time because it's usually someone with the most potential that gets in ruts a lot. Because
Yeah.
like how do you get in a rut? You have to be, you have to have high points to be able to get into that rut, and so it's usually people with so much potential, and if they would just realize that I can live at this, potential right here rather than letting myself go down there, because it's something you allow yourself to do,
Yeah.
and you can train on how not to do that.
100%.
You know what I
100%.
mean? Yeah. So that's kind of like that's my take on that. You know what I mean?
So let's kind of shift gears into closing.
Yeah.
So we're obviously going to be filming a course on closing in D2DU, which is kind of cool that you're like, we have D2DU as a company now, and
You do?
I'm going to be in that. So then all your guys are going to be like, wait, that's Connor.
Yeah.
It's going to be so good.
Uh,
But what I was going to say was tips on closing. So like, before we get into the nuts and bolts later on, I'm just curious, like, do you have any just, obviously you've closed a lot of deals, like
Right.
teeing it up the right way, any just
Yeah,
pro
yeah.
tips?
I mean, honestly, don't make the situation bigger than what it is. You know what I mean? Because you're literally there to help them. And so one of my main focuses whenever I'm in the deal is like, okay, I want to make sure that I have every single question answered that you can possibly think of before it even comes up. And There's not one question that you can think of. So my mindset, if you have one question at the end that I didn't cover or that I didn't go over, I know why if I did not sign that deal up. Because if you can think of one question that customer's thinking, what am I not thinking about right now? I need 24 hours. Like give me 24 to 48 hours to wait. Come back tomorrow. Come back in 2 days.
Yeah.
And that is, never happening. That's 5%, close ratio at that time. So it's like, if they have no questions, they're going to think, okay, if I can't even think of a single question, there's no, I have no reason not to do this. You know what I mean? That's truly kind of how I approach my closes.
So you make sure each question's being answered through your presentation
before it ever comes up.
Before it ever comes up.
Yep.
And then how do you check to is there a checkpoint where you're like,
it's almost like I know it's every question that you can think of in a
they would have said, what if I move?
Yep.
What if the solar
changed my
roof? Yes.
Homeowner insurance.
Whatever that is.
Anything, every single question. I mean,
you're probably going to think what if I move?
Yeah.
You do it. And the beauty is and then they're just
100%
I
transferable.
was just thinking this.
Yeah.
So I love that. Okay. Any other pro tip that you're just hey, to be the best closer, you got to have this mindset, or you got to approach it like this. And then we'll get into the closing in this, but I'm just curious.
I mean, you have to honestly think that there's no one that you cannot close. You know what I mean? There's not a single person in this world that if you sat down in front of, you cannot get them to sign docs today. You know what I mean? If you have that mindset, oh man. So tell you that one time so this guy, I walk in the house, man, he was a nice guy. Before he ever even said hello, didn't say hello, first words were to me, man, you can leave a bag of money on this table. I'm signing nothing today. And I was like, okay, hey, absolutely, man. Let me just show you what I got, right? We'll just go from there. And, of course, signed docs, panels on the roof today. You know what I mean? Which is an awesome feeling, having someone be like, hey, we do not make decisions the same day. So if that's what you're thinking, you can leave now.
Because a lot of closers or a lot of sales reps would just be like, oh, man,
Yep.
well, I guess I'll just kind of give you the little folder and say good luck, and I'll come back and hopefully close you one day.
Yep. Do every single deal. I don't care if they sat down with someone before, because that someone may not have been anything close to you on the way they present things. You still go through every motion like you would on a laydown. You're right. You know what I'm saying? I do the same close. I don't care if it's a one-legger. Obviously, you'll have some variables in there and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm fighting for someone else's money, right? That's setter. And so I'm going to do every single one, whether they sat down with 3 companies before. And there's ways you can do it to let this person know, hey, just so that we're on the same page. I'm sure you already know everything I'm about to tell you. Just in case there's any differences.
So don't assume and don't skip steps.
Yes.
That is the biggest killers. Don't assume and don't skip steps.
That is very, very true. Like you summarized that perfectly. Because that's so many people do that. They'll think, okay, this person is a laydown, and they skip a step or two. Yeah. Or like midway through the presentation, they're like, man, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't do this. Still finish it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like you're still going for the kill, but you want to make sure that, because that's how you save from cancels, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the customer's like, I already know I want solar. Just show me the numbers. And you're just like, oh, okay.
And you do it, and they're like, ooh.
I want to think about it. You're like, wait, you just told, no. Now you're backpedaling.
Yeah, literally. You have to always provide that value to them and show them why it's beneficial for them to get it. It's really empathy over sympathy, and that's the biggest thing that I always try to approach too. It's like, if I were selling to my grandmother, how would I talk to you right now?
Yeah.
And that's how I talk to every customer, right? You know what I mean? Like with that mindset. I'm like, this is literally helping you.
Cool.
Why would you, that's...
I'm excited to dive into the details here in a second.
I honestly think, and this is it, I would, I think this close, anyone can do it. It is so simplified. And I've actually helped a lot of my people, with AKE, even with nothing in return, like, hey, I want to make sure, like, dude, try this out. If there's anything you can take away from it.
What's cool is it's helping, by sharing all this, it's just helping more people go solar, which is really the mission, is to say, why don't we push the needle in renewable energy?
Yep.
Why don't we say, hey, if we have a bunch of crappy sales reps out there, the problem is people that should be going solar aren't going solar because you effed it up. Like
I literally I say the only enemy of solar is the people who don't do it the right way.
Yeah.
Or people who don't care about the customer and stuff like that. That's the only people, because then you get horror stories out there. You get, every single thing that you can think of.
Yeah.
Negatively.
Okay. Well, I'm excited. This has been good. I'm excited to dive in. So, if you're listening to this and you got some value, my invitation would be follow Connor Free, go check him out. And also, guys, share this. More people need to be better at this job. We know that door-to-door is not easy. We know that, there's days where you're driving out to area and you've got anxiety. We know there's days where you're in slumps. And then there's days where you're selling 5 in a day and you're making hella money. Like, the goal of this podcast is to help impact thousands, if not millions of people.